So first of all, Chodesh Tov to everybody. Bezrat Hashem, this should be an amazing month for everyone here. Hopefully, Bezrat Hashem, we should hear some good news that the COVID starts to go away, hopefully. I got some sad news today that someone we were praying very hard for from New Jersey, 25 years old, just got married this year. He passed away today. So his neshama should have an aliyah. This class should be for him. His name is Yehuda Aryeh Raphael Ben Yita. Bezrat Hashem, we should only hear good news from here on out. And today we're going to be learning about the halakha of going to the bathroom. Okay? Now, we're going to get a very interesting take, but there's going to be very deep insights that come from this that have a lot to do with what we're doing in Likutey Halachot right now together, that have to do with secular wisdom. And what is the benefit of secular wisdom? So let's see what Rav Natan says. A lot of people don't know this, but it says in the Shulchan Aruch that the Torah teaches that you're not allowed to wipe with your right hand. Why? Because it says in Masechet Brachot, Samech Bet, Mibnei shekosher ba tefillin, because this is the hand which you wrap tefillin with. Okay, and therefore it takes on a higher level of kedusha. There's other reasons that the Gemara brings there, but this is the main one that Rav Natan is bringing out right now. That because we wrap the tefillin with that arm, it's a sword to use it in the bathroom when we wipe. Okay, and for anybody who doesn't know, we're not allowed to do anything that has to do with kedusha in the bathroom. You're not allowed to think about the Torah in the bathroom. You're not allowed to read Torah books. You're not even actually allowed to speak in the bathroom. And we're also learning now that when it comes to the actual act of defecating, you cannot use your right hand to wipe, because your right hand, so to speak, has a higher level of kedusha, because the Gemara says that you use it to strap your tefillin. Now, let's see how this connects to the deeper wisdom of Chassidut and Kabbalah, and specifically one of the biggest inyanim by Rabbi Nachman, which my students are working very hard on this month. Ki chotmot chitzoniot she'al yadam nimshachin kefirut heim nikraim ki tzoa b'li makom. That secular wisdom, external wisdom, she'al yadam nimshachin, that through them is drawn kafirut, atheism. Hem nikraim ki tzoa b'li makom, which is the concept of feces that has no place. Ki hama'achol mechayeh et adam, because when a person eats, he's enlivening himself with that food. It's giving him chiyut and life force. Va'ayadeh ze me'ir panav, and through this, his face is supposed to be illuminated. Why? Because he's getting nutrients and sustenance on a physical level. But on a spiritual level, we know that the life force of anything comes from its neshama. And we know that food itself also has sparks of godliness, which are trapped in the food. This is the deeper reason why we make brachot on the food. It's to lift up those sparks. And there's a lot of sparks in food. So when a person eats slowly and with kavanah, with intention, mindfully, and he makes the brachot before and after, and it's kosher, so through this he illuminates his face, because those sparks of godliness are now going inside of him, and we know that all godliness is reflected through the face. Because he's eating with kedusha. Like the pasuk says, like it says in Ruth, that you should eat and drink, and it's going to be good for your heart. Like it says otherwhere in Likutey Halachot. Because the essence of chiyut, of life force, of energy, of strength, of motivation, which is the concept of the illumination of the face of Hashem, it all comes through eating. Specifically through the ruchniut, through the spirituality, which the one who is eating derives from the physical food. And obviously, like we said, from the letters of creation, which Rabbi Nachman speaks about, that this is the main thing which we are receiving sustenance from. When you get to a certain level, this is where you realize you're getting your joy from the food from. It's not from the physical food itself. It's from the illumination of the letters within the food. Shuhu atov shebemachal, that it is good for the eater. Shirak ze mechaye et adam, that it enlivens the person. Because we know the pasuk says it's not through the bread itself that life force comes to men. Ki al kol matzah pi Hashem yichyeh adam, like it says in Sefer Devarim. It's actually through what comes out of the mouth of Hashem kivyachol that is giving life force to men, because we know that everything that's in this physical world, everything in the universe, everything in creation, is drawing down new life force at every moment from Hashem. And it's taught, especially very deeply in Kabbalah and Chassidut and the Zohar, that if for one moment Hashem decided not to give life force to any entity, not just even a person, even a physical entity like a table or like a chair, that thing would cease to exist. Now, even though this sounds obviously very hard to believe, because you can't imagine a chair going anywhere, maybe you're sitting on one and you never saw it go anywhere. However, we know, even according to science at this point, that if you look on a micro level, there are many things which are moving inside the chair that you don't see outside because they're moving so slow. However, there are atoms that are moving and bumping in X, Y, and Z, electrons and protons, X, Y, and Z, and these things are all moving. And you see that they are the life force of the thing on a physical micro level. And it's taught that if there was any type of disruption in this thing, that this thing would have a combustion and it would go away. So even on a physical level, we understand now, with the newest revelations of science, that you could even see deeper. Say hi, Sheila.
Hi.
This is my son, Sheila. Hi. That there's more going on than meets the eye. And obviously the Torah has been teaching for thousands of years that in truth there is a life force which is being poured into every physical entity which is giving it life. And if it were to stop, there would be no life from it. And the pasuk says in Devarim that it's not from the bread itself that a person's getting life force from the bread. It's from the mouth of Hashem, because we know that all the life force that's being pumped into everything at every moment, where is it coming from? It's coming from what the Torah calls the P, the mouth of Hashem. We know that the Ramban says that when it speaks about Hashem's mouth, it's speaking about his mechanism of turning things from potential into actual. That, so to speak, even though this life force always existed in potential, it is actually Hashem using his mouth, quote unquote, to speak it into existence that takes it from potential into actual. It's okay, sweetie. As long as he's quiet, he can come. Okay? Come. Just no speaking, okay? Meaning, so to speak, me and my son, we always existed in potential. Our souls were always there. But it's Hashem actually deciding to speak us out that causes our creation. This is actually the very deep reason why, according to halakha, it's very important that when you say the Torah, when you're learning it, you speak it out. And we say many, many times over that you should speak it out, that you should say it on your way, in your home, to your children, to your students, that you should speak it, speak it, speak it, speak it. What is this constant vigilance which the Torah is placing on speaking? And the answer is that speaking is the mechanism for turning things from potential into actual. This is also one of the deeper reasons why Rabbi Nachman says that you must take the Torah that you learn and turn it into tefillah. Because until you actually speak it out, so to speak, the Torah that you're learning only exists as a potential reality for you. You have not manifested it, not within yourself, not within your heart, and not within your life. And obviously we know that the Torah and Hashem are one. So therefore, as long as you have not spoken out the Torah, meaning you have not spoken out your connection to Hashem, then it only exists in potential. But once you start to speak it out, then you actualize that relationship with you, Hashem, and you experience it. You know, people tell me that when I say this very, very important foundation of Breslov Chassidus, which Rabbi Nachman says is something every Jew should be doing, is that is speaking to Hashem for at least an hour every day. And they say, you know, obviously we could see how at this point psychologically that would be beneficial. That if you speak to Hashem for an hour, if you speak to anybody for an hour, then you would obviously believe in them more, hinting to the fact that it's more of a psychological phenomenon. And obviously, on paper, it makes sense that if you're going to speak to someone, you're more aware of them. However, we know spiritually that this is a very, very deep mechanism, that it's not just psychological, that the speaking itself is what creates and actualizes that which exists in potential. And so to speak, in your life, even though Hashem is everywhere, the only way that you experience it is when you turn Hashem from potential to actual in your life, and that's through speaking. Okay? So now he's saying that when you eat food, it's not the physical food itself that's giving you the sustenance, it's the life force that's being pumped into it from the mouth of Hashem, because that's what actualizes the life force in anything. However, the actual physical existence, the actual physical entities which make up the food, that are attached within it, that's where all of the excess of the food comes from. Meaning, we know that when a person eats food, the nutrients, the vitamins, which we're learning is actually a physical manifestation of the spiritual life force that's being pumped into it. We know that there's also physical excess, meaning what happens to the parts that's not that? It comes out of you in the bathroom. So obviously, if we look just at a normal basis, we never really thought about it. But if we understand that everything in the physical world is a reflection of a spiritual reality, so what is this a reflection of? If we understand that all of the godliness comes from the nutrients, the vitamins, which are pumped into you from Hashem's mouth, the life force that is being manifested within the food itself. So what is the physical aspect of the food? So this is pasolet. Like we learned with the Luchot, that he says pasolet, that this is like the extra carvings that came off of it. Okay? So meaning that this is excess. What happens to this excess? It is pushed outside of you. You don't internalize it at all. It goes completely outside of you and it's waste. And now he's saying that what you leave in the bathroom? What is that excess that comes from the food that you don't actually need? It only holds onto and contains the fruit, meaning the spiritual life force, which then infuses you, the vitamins and the minerals. This is the tremendous chiddush, and that is, he says, it's called secular wisdom. That external secular wisdom is to spiritual wisdom what you leave in the bathroom is to the nutrients and vitamins that are in your body. Now, if you think about the correlation, this is very, very deep, and there's many chidushim, novelties and understanding that you can get from this. Obviously, one of them being that if you were to, let's say, have a problem with your system and you couldn't release the excess of the body, you would die. It would be a tremendous illness that would come to a person that he's not able to release. That's why we know many people that they do have issues, let's say with constipation and things like this. They need to take laxatives, they need to take other things because it makes them very, very sick. Okay? Why? What's the reason? Because physical excess is a manifestation of external wisdom, which Rabbi Nachman says leads to kafirut, atheism. Because the life force of atheism comes from secular wisdom. Why is that? Because Rav Natan taught us before that what is the whole difference between the chokhmah of Torah, the chokhmah of Kabbalah, the chokhmah of Chassidut, the chokhmah of Panimi, inner, versus external wisdom, secular wisdom. So he says this inner wisdom, the whole ikr of it is emunah. The whole ikr of it is da'at. that you know that everything in the world is a manifestation of Hashem's ratzon at every moment. That if Hashem didn't want to, nothing would be taking place, ever. Everything is exactly what Hashem wants it to be. He's the cause of everything. He is the cause of the life force that's being pumped into it. He is manifesting himself within the reality that's taking place. And it's an active decision on Hashem's part. And if for one moment he decided not to cause something to happen, it would not be happening. That's called da'at, to know that. And that's called amunah, to believe in that. And this is deeply rooted in the concept of hashgacha pratit. That is, that every single thing is providence. Nothing is a coincidence. Nothing is just happening. Even Rabbi Nachman and Rav Natan say that physical laws of nature are only the lowest manifestation of hashgacha pratit. Meaning the reason why they appear to be just functioning on their own, they don't appear to be in the hands of any other force besides the laws of nature, is only because they are the lowest expression of hashgacha pratit. And therefore, Hashem's hashgacha, his providence, is hidden the most in this area, not because he's not the cause of it. He's also the cause of nature. It's just a very, very, very low manifestation of godliness. And as a result of that, Hashem's hand is concealed. And therefore, what is science and what is external wisdom based on? Philosophy? It's based on only the laws of nature, only the things which you could see, hear, taste, touch, and feel, which according to the Torah is the lowest consciousness. That yes, it is a consciousness. And yes, there is such a thing as seeing, hearing, tasting, and feeling. And there is value to it. However, the value that's in it is actually the lowest of all of our perceptions. However, we know that if a person is only connected to physicality, this is the highest perception he can have, and therefore he's going to build his whole life and his whole orientation to reality based on his physical senses. But we understand that a guf bli neshama, that a body bli a soul, that science bli spirituality is atheism. It's kafirut. And he says, Kitzoah, this is the excrement that you leave in the bathroom. And therefore the Shulchan Aruch says that when a person, if he desires to take upon himself O Malchut Shamayim Shlema, that he is making a declaration, or he's making an internal expression of the fact that he desires to have the veikut with Hashem, that he is saying that I believe that there is a source of reality which goes beyond this physical world, which is creating and giving and pumping in life force to everything at every moment, causing each thing that's taking place, which is the concept of lower wisdom, which is the concept of Amunah, Malchut, he needs to wash his hands. Meaning that the Gemara says in Masechet Brachot that after he goes to the bathroom and he released excess, this physical excess, which we know now means that I'm releasing all of the secular wisdom inside of me, all of the sveikot, all of the doubts that come to me from my limited perception of the physical world. I'm releasing that before I start to pray, before I start to learn. And now after I release it, I still have to wash my hands. But first, Yipaneh, you need to release. Lidchot hamotarot, that you need to push out all excess. Shebechinat chochmot chitzonia, which is the concept of external wisdom. And we know that Rabbi Nachman says a tremendous chiddush in the Likutey Moharan, which if the whole psychological world, the therapist, psychiatrist, Bezrat Hashem, will one day have a taste of, which we're hoping Sion will play a big part in this, is having a new, deeper understanding of where sadness comes from, where depression comes from. That Rabbi Nachman says, atzvut, sadness and depression do not come from a genetic disorder, but they come from motarot, excess. They come from the excess of external wisdom. That when external secular wisdom becomes a part which is invested and imbued within a person, the automatic expression of that is depression. What's the reason? Because depression comes from hopelessness. Hopelessness comes from internalization and investment in a lie. That lie is that Hashem does not control every aspect of reality, and therefore I am at the laws of nature, and whatever my situation is will continue to be, which is hopeless. And this is the deep reason for sadness. We know, even let's say in substance abuse clinics, even when I was in school, when I was a self-proclaimed atheist and I was dealing with my own issues of depression, we learned a very interesting phenomenon, which I chalked up to the fact that people just needed hope in their life, and I didn't understand the deeper elements of spirituality which were infusing this, which is that the number one form of substance abuse treatment, or at least has been proven to be with research, that these people have the highest success rates, are those people who join, let's say, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, or those people who are in Narcotics Anonymous, NA, is that the ikar of their healing comes from the fact that one of the rules of the program is to understand and believe that there is some source of reality which is controlling all of reality and causing what's taking place. And this is one of the fundamental parts of their healing. And the other groups, let's say, that try to deal with substance abuse and alcohol abuse, that they don't have this, there's a less of a success rate. So what's the deeper reason behind this? Because when a person does not believe that there is a cause to reality which goes above and beyond his circumstances, then there's no hope. Because whatever has been will only continue to be more and more, or even get worse and worse according to the laws of nature. However, if I can believe that there is a source of reality which has caused all of these things, then I can believe just as much as this has been hell and Gehenna for me for this amount of years and hopeless, and I have all these odds stacked against me, there is someone who has created those odds stacked against me. There is someone who has caused me to fall in this way. And therefore, there is a reason, a very, very strong reason for me to believe that I can come out of it, because this is not something which is hopeless. So you need to release your external wisdom. So too, me, myself, that when I was in the psych ward and I had reached my lowest low and I tried every psych medication, it didn't work. That I even tried electric shock therapy and it didn't work. Because the reason for my depression was my very, 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 very deep internalization, investment in secular wisdom, which I'd spent over 20 years, not just learning, but investing deeply in, reading books about evolutionary theory, reading books about atheism, reading books, watching the greatest philosophers in the world, taking classes on all of these things, and spending a lot of my free time trying to gain understanding in these areas and excelling in understanding what is going on in these places. And what ended up happening to a Jewish boy like me is it caused a very, very deep kafirut, which Rav Natan brings from Rabbi Nachman. This is the ultimate result of it. It has to be. And then what ends up coming along with that is very deep yeush, very deep hopelessness. And there's no medicine that can fix that. There's no therapeutic intervention that can fix that, because medicine cannot cure yeush. It might give you an ability when you're in a very dark place to, so to speak, lift up so that you're able to work on yourself. But in the end, even the psychiatrist would tell you that medicine will not cure you of your depression, right? And even therapy will not. Ultimately, you need to find certain resources or certain tools or certain things within yourself, which you have not yet, different ways of thinking, for you to be able to actually lift up and out of depression and anxiety and X, Y, and Z. But we're learning that on a very deep level, it's not even from our experiences in life. It's not from what happened in our family. It's not even from trauma, let's say. It's actually from a very, very deep internalization and investment and refusal to let go of secular wisdom, meaning that we haven't released it in the bathroom. Va'achar kach yitol yadav. And afterwards that you release, you now have to wash your hands. Why? Because in Kabbalah it's explained that the water that you're washing your hands with, according to halakha, is the concept of the waters of love or kindness. And all the waters of chesed are rooted in Kabbalah in the sphere that's called da'at. Da'at means the revelation of godliness in your life. This is the complete contradiction. This is a complete opposite, a switching of what I released in the bathroom. And now that I released my secular wisdom, I now am washing my hands with da'at, with God consciousness. But I couldn't wash my hands, meaning I couldn't experience God consciousness, a spiritual perception of reality, which goes above physicality, until I released my investment in the belief that all there is the physical world. Lamshicha chesed. And now you can draw down yourself chesed. And through this, you cut off the malchut, meaning your amuna, from the sitra achra, from secular wisdom. And now you're purifying it with the water that you're using to wash your hands. Like Rav Natan says, you can see this elsewhere when we get to Hilchot Gittin. And afterward, thus, yaniach tefillin. And now only after this whole process can you put on your tefillin. Meaning after you have flushed out all excess investment in secular wisdom, and you have poured on yourself perceptions of godliness, now and only now, says Masechet Brachot, can I now put on tefillin, say Kriyat Shema, and pray the Amidah. He calls it because all of this, because all of these steps, which are that I put on tefillin, I say Shema, and ultimately say the Amidah, this is all the complete tikkun of Amunah, that you reach Amunah Shlema through this whole process in the morning. Because Shachrit, the morning, is always the concept of Geula. That's the reason why you have to say, according to Halakha, that you take 3 steps back and forward. You can't take any time between saying Ga'al Yisrael, that you're redeeming the Jewish people, and specifically me, Geula, and you say the Amidah, that is Tefillah. Because for you to have Geula, you need Emunah Shlema. And the Amidah is an expression of Emunah Shlema. And your ability to get to Emunah Shlema, you need to first go through all of these steps like we're saying now. That all of the rectifications, all of the mending, all of the healing, shehem hitorut ashena, all of the arousal from the sleep of spirituality, spiritual sleep, dipaneh, it all starts with release in the bathroom, meaning that you release all external wisdom, vitol yadav, and now you wash your hands with meimei chesed, the waters of kindness, of love, which are the waters of da'at, the pure waters of God consciousness, which you can now experience because you have released your connection to secular wisdom first. V'tzitzit, and now you have tzitzitan, which we know is the concept of the 613 mitzvot. And now that you have the 613 mitzvot on you, which according to the Zohar are the 613 pieces of good advice, you have now infused yourself with godliness. Ukriyat Shema, now you can say Shema, and you can believe that Hashem Echad, that Hashem is completely one. And now you can do tefillah, meaning you can reach the state of bitul, that I nullify myself within the oneness of godliness. And this is Geula. With tefillah hakol bishvil aliyat amalchu keyedua. And tefillah is, all of tefillah is because of the ascent of the malchut from the sitra achra. So that's this whole process. That is your lower wisdom. Abraham tiken shachri. This is what it means that Abraham instituted shachri. What it means on a deeper level, says Rav Natan, is that Abraham, meaning the tzaddik yesod olam, or the tzaddik inside of you, tiken, he rectifies shachri, meaning amuna. He does it through all of these steps. K'moshe katuv b'torah. And therefore, Ein makanchim b'yamin. Therefore, we're not allowed to, according to the Shulchan Aruch, wipe with our right hand. Mimei shekosher bat tefillin, because this is the hand with which you tie your tefillin. Shehem or panim, and we know that tefillin are the concept of the light of Hashem's face, meaning the complete revelation of godliness. And therefore, because we're tying at shemisham ikar chiyut, that's where the chiyut shel malchut comes from. This is where the illumination of godliness into your emunah, into your malchut, into your lower wisdom comes from. Sholeh v'nitheret mehem, that it ascends and it's purified with that hand. And therefore, asur lipanot mizrach u'mirav. And that's why also the Shulchan Aruch says it is asur to release in the bathroom either to the east or to the west. Now, obviously, we know that the laws have changed with the institutions of actual bathrooms and with the fact that the Beit HaMikdash has been destroyed. But let's say at the time that they didn't have bathrooms and we had the Beit HaMikdash, you were not allowed to defecate to the east or to the west. Why? Neged Yerushalayim. Because these things are opposite to Yerushalayim, which we know Yerushalayim is the concept of Amunah Shlema, the rectification of Amunah, that it comes from the word Yira Shalem, complete whole Yira, which is Amunah, which is Malchut. Shesham Beit HaMikdash. And in that place of Yerushalayim, in that place of complete Amunah, lower wisdom, the hand tefillin, you have there the Beit HaMikdash, which is the concept of the head tefillin, which is the concept of the Or Panim, the light of Hashem's face, complete God consciousness. Shesham Ikar Or Panim, that there is the essence of the light of Hashem's face. So this right now is Iker. This lesson right here is one of the fundamentals, not just of Rabbi Nachman's Torah, to having transformation in your life. I've spoken many, many times about this to my students for years, that one of the greatest things that Rabbi Nachman did for me is teach me this whole concept. And what Rav Natan does now, and he brings it down in mamish such a beautiful way, to be able to see in a felt sense, in a deep, but simple way, what is external wisdom? What is secular wisdom? Why is it that Chassidut and those followers of the Baal Shem Tov are so makpid not to look at any of it? You know, on paper, you see, let's say, a community of Chassidim, and you think that they're so insulated. And why aren't they learning anything that comes out nowadays? And you think it's because either, let's say, you're more moderate as a religious Jew, and you think it's because they're fanatical or they're extreme. Or let's say, for instance, you're not even religious, so you think that they are in a cult, and they're living like the Amish people. And therefore, they've insulated because they don't want that somebody should go to the other side. This is not the reason they do this. There is a very, very deep reason why Chassidim do not look at secular wisdom. It's because according to the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, that the greatest impediment to actually having a Amunah, that Hashem can do anything for you at any moment, which is the Iker of Amunah, is secular wisdom. That to the degree in which you learn secular wisdom, to that degree, you will believe less that Hashem could help you in a way of Hashgacha Pratit. And just speaking openly and honestly, you see this very clearly, let's say, with modern Orthodoxy, that they have taken upon themselves to learn the same things that the secular world does, and they pride themselves on it. But ultimately, you will see that those same people go into complete yeyush and despair when things happen to them in their life. Whereas, let's say, a person who has not learned these things, he will say, Kol Tova, everything is from Hashem, and it's going to get better, and I believe it, and I'm going to now pray to Hashem that He's going to change it. So a person who, let's say, he's invested in the world of, let's say, modern Orthodoxy, so he will say, Mapiton, what are you talking about? I have to go physically take care of this thing. It's not going to take care of it itself. Doesn't make any sense. Okay, but this is a complete steer to what the Torah teaches, because the Torah is teaching da'at. The Torah is teaching God consciousness. The Torah is teaching Amunah, that Hashem is in control of your life, that Hashem is the cause of changes in your life, not doctors, not medicine, not science, not any of these things. And this is the real reason, by the way, that those people are struggling now. And even in the religious world, that you see many people have a hard time believing that Hashem can fix their life, that Hashem can change their life. And we think it's because we live in the modern world, and therefore we have to go do certain things, because otherwise we won't function. But the real reason why a Jew does not believe that I can go speak to Hashem for an hour at least a day, and Hashem can make every area of my life better, in actuality, physically, is because he has invested either a lifetime or not as much, or subtly, even not even in yeshiva, but even outside or even in yeshiva, that it's infused that place in secular wisdom. And the only way to be able to reach complete amunah, says Rabbi Nachman, is that you take this thing and you release it, just like you do. You have to go to the bathroom and you flush it down the toilet, because ultimately there's no way to come to amunah shlema as long as you are invested in secular wisdom. This is the one of the deeper inyanim of the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. That Mashiach ben Yosef, who's the concept of the Tzaddik Yesod Olam, his entire ikr is to get the Jewish people to release themselves from Mitzrayim, meaning to release themselves from secular wisdom. And only after that is accomplished, and then, so to speak, they've left the spiritual and the mental, psychological consciousness of Mitzrayim, which comes from the word tsar, which is constricted because of the secular wisdom which is infusing it. Then Mashiach ben David, David HaMelech, King David, can come in and now rectify your emunah, which is Geula. So we have a few minutes left. Does anybody have any questions about this lesson right now?
Rabbeinu.
Yes.
You saw what I texted?
Yes, you wrote, all hopelessness is a part of Yeush. Beautiful.
Also, hopelessness is also part of Yeush, right?
It's one and the same.
Hmm?
It's the same thing. Very good.
Oh.
Anybody else? Any questions about how to practically implement this in your life?
Also, the day represents Geula, right?
Very good.
And also the night represents Galut, Teva.
Perfect. Teva. Very good, David. I love you.
Rabbi, I have one question.
Go ahead.
You mentioned emunah. That's one thing. I understand that you have to have faith, but how is it that I know you can't control it, but you can't just sit on your hands and do nothing either.
You're right. Very good. So this is the question that has come up many, many, many times since we started teaching Rabbi Nachman's teachings. So this is the chiddush. You don't work any less hard than a person does in the modern secular world. You work as hard, if not harder. However, you reallocate that effort into spiritual hishtadlut. Meaning, you don't say, I'm not going to do anything and I'm just going to go live my life because Hashem's going to take care of it. No, you have to go do hishtadlut. But the hishtadlut is a reallocation of where am I putting my toiling? Am I putting my toiling in that work is going to be the cause of my money? That if I work 12 hours instead of 8 hours, I will be able to experience all the joy and blessings in my life that I want to. Or that if I, let's say, go with my wife and every single day, I do different things in order to be able to make our relationship better because it's on the rocks. So all of these are physical acts of hishtadlut. However, if Hashem controls the world, and Hashem is the cause of the fact that your relationship is on the rocks, and He's the cause of the fact that you are making less money than you would like to, then so too, if Hashem wants to, then He can cause that it's not like that. Okay? We know that a person's amount of money that he makes in a year is all determined on Rosh Hashanah. So we see that it's clearly from Hashem. This is a Gemara. This is not even Chassidut. So if that's the case, then Hashem is in control of my parnasa. So then how would a person, let's say for instance, you had a boss and you were at work. This boss was the one who had your salary. He was the one who owns the whole place. Imagine that every day you went to the janitor and asked him to give you a raise. So anybody on paper would say this person is obviously not well, right? Because the janitor does not have money to pay him. You would want to go to the boss because the boss is the one who is giving you your salary. so too, according to the Torah, Hashem is the one who's giving you your salary, not your boss. He's like the janitor. Okay? And also in your relationship with your spouse, that your spouse, your wife, is also under the complete jurisdiction of Hashem or your husband, whatever it is. And therefore, if you want a real mending of the situation, ultimately that will only come from Hashem. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take that same effort, that same intensity of running after it, but I'm not going to run after money. I'm going to run after Hashem. That I'm going to go speak to Hashem for an hour a day. I'm going to cry. I'm going to scream. I'm going to plead with him to help me. That I'm going to learn his Torah. That I'm going to go help Jewish people. That I'm going to go do as many mitzvot as I can. And through this concept, you're not working any less hard. You are doing hishtadlut. You're just reallocating your hishtadlut. And then what you're going to see is everything in the physical world is actually a manifestation of something spiritual. So when you correct something at its spiritual source, it automatically has to manifest in your physical life. Very good question. Any other questions?
Rabbi, really quick.
Yeah.
You said the excess has to come out. Are we talking about just in the morning, or this is just overall?
No, so obviously, according to halakha, you always have to make sure that you have released it before you pray. But we're saying that the concept of morning prayer is the concept of geula, complete rectification of amuna. Okay, and this comes through the different halachot that the Shulchan Aruch says about the morning. Meaning, because it comes from the Gemara Masechet Brachot. How does a person accept Ol Malchut Shemayim upon himself? Meaning amuna. He does it by getting up, going to the bathroom, releasing all excess, washing his hands, putting on tzitzit, putting on tefillin, saying Shema, and doing the Amidah. This is the complete receiving, makabeling of Ol Malchut Shemayim, meaning amuna. So we're saying now that before you pray, specifically in the morning, because morning represents geula, but in general, whenever you pray, where pray represents prayer, says Rabbi Nachman says, prayer is amuna, amuna is geula, right? It's Mashiach ben David. So how do you be able to experience geula, Mashiach ben David? You first have to have a geula from Mashiach ben Yosef. You have to first release all negativity which is within you, all of your investment in secular external understanding of reality, because there's no way for a Jew to feel that amuna which is blazing in his heart, which is already there. You're not creating something new. You're just revealing it. There's no way to reveal that thing until you first clear away all of the excess, which would be going to the restroom before you start praying. Okay. And by the way, for anybody who's
Another question, Rabbi.
yeah.
I'm sorry, if a person has constipation constantly, what does that mean? Does that mean he has too much of
No, you
access?
can't make extrapolations like this. Rabbi Nachman says in Sichot Aran that if a person has trouble with the bathroom, meaning he's constantly finding that he's going to the bathroom and he can't pray, he said, do not worry about it. Don't spend 1 second thinking about it or paying attention to it. Do what you need to do. Go back to praying. Okay? Because the main thing is you don't need to become a spiritual scientist. You don't need to find what does every single thing mean that's happening to me in my physical life. When you get to a certain point, Hashem will plop these things into you and you will be able to experience those things. The main thing that you need to understand is these basic ikarim. That is, what does physical excess represent on a spiritual level? Because it's there to teach you something about your spiritual life. Not that you have to become a mekubal and figure out what is going on in your life about all these things. Just go do. Okay? Now, also, for anybody who's listening, there is a group of guys based on Likutey Moharan, Torah Hey, which obviously this Torah that we just learned, Likutey Halachot, is drawing on this. The huge impediment of secular wisdom for a Jew to be able to experience Emunah. And obviously, Rabbi Nachman, when he said there's a huge wave of atheism that's going to come into the world, how did he know that? Because he understands that the life force of kafirut, atheism, comes from secular wisdom. And what was beginning when Rabbi Nachman was alive and after he passed away, began to bloom and grow and blossom, which he saw was that what was called the Enlightenment movement, meaning that the movement that secular wisdom would become the primary focus of schools, of education systems, of communities, of all of humanity, that this would automatically have to lead to atheism. Because the concept of secular wisdom, Rabbi Nachman understood according to Kabbalah, is the koach and life force and chiyut spiritually of the manifestation in a person's heart of kafirut, of that I don't believe in Hashem. Okay, so therefore we decided, the guys in our group, that we're going to make a WhatsApp group of brave Jewish souls who, even though they might even be in their young 20s and they have spent their whole lives on their phone playing video games, on YouTube, on Instagram, and all these other things. You see anything you like? Yes. Yeah, 1 second, buddy. So we decided to make a group that it just started Shvat, this month Shvat. For this whole month, we have a 30-day or 28-day challenge. The month of Shvat, no secular Shvat. What does it mean? That we have all took it upon ourselves for 1 month not to look at any secular wisdom. And Bezrat Hashem, to see what it does for us, to be able to release all of the things that are, so to speak, covering up our emunah, and then instead of just doing an hour of Hibodadut, to make it the most effective thing possible by releasing all of the things which are blocking over and concealing our ability to pray and be heard. Okay, I know we're all investing a lot of time already, if you're learning Rabbi Nachman's teachings and praying more than you ever have in your life. So we want to go get all the bang for our buck. We want to experience complete emunah. I will tell you that even since we started it, even yesterday, that a person already took upon himself, that he got rid of all of his social media for the month. He said already when I did my bodhidut, I felt so close to Hashem, and I felt that I could just pour my heart out to him right away. I experienced this myself as well. Bezrat Hashem, all the guys will. If you want to be a part of our Tzion, no secular Shvat group, to be part of the brotherhood, just give us a text or a call, either to Benjamin Roberts or to myself, or email us at tzionbreslavproject@gmail.com. We will add you into the group, so you're part of a support group. People who are trying to give each other good ideas. What else could we do that is fun, that's stimulating, that's exciting, that doesn't involve concealing and hiding our emunah from ourselves, so that we can go get our prayers heard and answered. Especially, we know in the COVID, there's so much going on right now. We all have even more stressors, difficulties, challenges than we've had for so many years. Besides our own individual stuff, we really, really need our prayers to get answered now more than ever. So if you want, send it there. Also, anybody who's listening, please email me questions that you want me to give to Gedalia Fenster, so that for the class next week, Bezrat Hashem, I can give it to him, and then we can look it over, and hopefully we'll be able to answer those questions during the class. I've not received any questions yet. Please text me, email me, whatever you want. Let's make it interesting and exciting, okay? Everybody have an amazing Rosh Chodesh. This is a time of renewal. This is a time of starting over again. Take it upon yourself with us. No secular Shvat. Join the group. And Bezrat Hashem, we should all see miracles in our life in actuality, and not just hear about them from books and from Masoret. Everybody have an amazing Rosh Chodesh.